Good morning, my name is Becca Martin. I'm here at Heritage Farms and I'm going to talk to you about a few different things in relation to vegetable gardening. We're going to start with tomatoes today. And what I'd like to point out here is the way that the tomatoes are trellised at Heritage Farms in their organic field. This is called the Florida weave. These are stakes that are spaced every so many feet, and then as the tomato has grown, they have used twine to hold the tomato plants up. And obviously, you know, this is different from what some of us might do in our backyards with those tomato cages that tend to fall over every mid-August. I'm sure you've experienced that. This is a bit sturdier, these are not going anywhere, and it helps to hold the tomatoes up. The reason we trellis tomatoes is we do not want their leaves to be down along the ground where there's the potential to pick up diseases from the wet soil. It also helps prevent the tomato branches from breaking as they get heavy with fruit. So all around, it's a really good practice in your garden to trellis your tomatoes, and I will show you some other ways of doing this in my home garden as well. Another type of trellising option for your home garden would be to use these cattle panels with the metal T-bar stakes. These are great for, as you can see, the cucumbers growing here. You can use these again for your tomatoes, for green beans, for any of your climbing crops that you want to get up off the ground. Not only are you going to be saving space, but again, you're going to be promoting better health for the plant in that they won't be on the ground collecting diseases, they won't be stepped on by people. So there's just a lot of advantages to trellising your vegetables. I'm here in my backyard garden today to show you yet one more trellising technique for tomatoes, peas, beans, cucumbers, any of your climbers. This year I'm using these trellis systems on our tomatoes. Last year I used them for our sugar snap peas. Essentially what we've done is taken these metal poles, some PVC L brackets, or elbows I guess, and some wire fencing, and attach the wire fencing with zip ties. And then what holds it all up is a piece of rebar that has been pounded into the ground about 6 to 8 inches, and then the metal poles sit over the rebar and are bracketed into the wood of the raised bed. And so this provides really sturdy support for the tomato plants as they grow. It allows for good air circulation early in the season. Right now it's so crowded, I don't know that there is much air circulation going on. Another thing that I do with my tomato plants is I use strips of old t-shirts that I've cut apart to hold up the tomatoes. I find that it doesn't dig into the branches, and so it gives a little bit of stretch as the tomato vines grow and get bigger. But I would advise against using an old red t-shirt, because too often earlier this season I kept seeing flashes of red in the tomato plants, and I thought, oh, maybe I've got a ripe tomato, but in reality it was just a piece of a t-shirt. So anyways, just a word to the wise. One more example of a trellis for your tomatoes, or not a trellis exactly, but more of a cage for your tomatoes, would be these sturdier square metal cages. They're not that typical kind of cyclone shaped ones. These ones would stand up to the mature growth of the tomato and are probably better for your determinate varieties, as those varieties of tomatoes only get to about 4 feet tall, versus your indeterminate varieties that grow 6 to 8 feet tall and need a taller trellising system. Determinate varieties are also a bushier growing variety, so being in cages works well for them. Mulching is a great option in your vegetable garden. Not only does it help retain moisture in the soil, but it also prevents weed growth. As you can see, there are no weeds in this bed. So there are a lot of options that you have as a vegetable grower when you choose a mulch. Here at the organic fields, they do choose to use black plastic as a mulch. And at home, you could do this on a smaller scale, but other options for you would be straw or compost, or even some smaller wood chips could do in a pinch. Grass clippings work well as a mulch too. And one thing I do want you to notice when you do use your mulch, if you're using a drip line or soaker hoses, you're going to want to put that underneath the mulch so that the water actually gets to the plant's root zone. Knowing when to pick some of your vegetable crops is very important so that you pick them at a time when they are at their peak, when they've not gone beyond edibility, or when they've not gotten to a point where they won't have the quality and effect that you really want. So for example, zucchinis are notorious for getting big overnight. Here's one zucchini that is about 12 inches long, and it is truly just a little too large for what you would ideally want to see. Most zucchinis you want to pick when they are 6 to 9 inches long. So I do have one here that is about 3 inches. So I will keep an eye. I'll come out every day or two and try and catch him at the right time. So when growing vegetables and when picking crops at the right time, it's important to come out to your garden every day or every other day and pick often. This will also help you to be able to get your crops instead of maybe the birds or the squirrels. Here's an example of a cabbage head that has gone beyond the point of maturity. If left on the plant, the cabbage will eventually split, and at this point it's probably just good for your chickens. Here's a cabbage that is just ready for picking. It's perfect for harvest, it's full, it's healthy looking, and it's ready for your dinner table. Knowing when to harvest your crops is important. You spent so many weeks and months growing these vegetables from seed and from starts that you want to get the most that you can out of them. Harvesting broccoli when they have these nice tight green buds is the right time for picking them up for your garden, for your dinner table. But when you let them go too long, they start to flower and now they're no longer useful for harvesting. Here's a lettuce plant that has gone to the point of maturity and it's doing what it was designed to do. It has blossomed and is going to seed. Some people will allow their lettuce plants or other vegetables to go to seed so that they can collect them and use them in future years. So here, this is not a problem necessarily. It might be quite intentional by the gardener. Companion planting is a topic that has been written about in many books, magazine articles, and websites, etc. However, there has not been a lot of scientific research that actually proves any of the claims that are made about companion planting. Gardeners, though, will always want to include flowers in their vegetable gardens because they bring color, beauty, beneficial insects, and serve many other purposes. Marigolds are always talked about being planted next to tomatoes. It's just one of those things, it seems that they go hand in hand together. Zinnias are providing nice color in the garden. Different flowering herbs such as lavender will bring in beneficial insects, which then benefit your garden by pollinating and any of the predatory insects that will come in and eat some of your pests. So while companion planting may not be 100% scientifically backed, there are some aspects of it that are definitely shown to be effective. Often you will see flowers incorporated into a vegetable garden for a variety of reasons, but the primary reason would be that they can serve as a benefit to the gardener. Here is a nasturtium at the community gardens at Heritage Farms, and I find that nasturtiums are a great plant to have in your garden. Not only are they edible, but they are great for attracting aphids to them instead of to your crops. Here on this plant, you will see the signs that the aphids have been here. So here we've got aphids on the nasturtium, a crop that you can use or leave instead of aphids on the bean plants that the gardener is trying to grow. So one of the last things I want to talk to you about today with regards to vegetable gardening is problem diagnosis. There are three components that I like to think of, and that is to prevent, to observe, and to act. When you are setting out your vegetable garden in the early spring, the things that you do then will help prevent problems further on. Proper plant spacing, proper plant selection, proper site selection, trellising, all of those things that you do way back March, April, May set you up for success later on in the season. The other thing is that you need to observe your garden. As you're out in it watering, weeding, look for pests, look for potential problems. And when you identify them, when you're looking every few days, you're going to catch them early. And then the last step is to act on that. Don't just go, oh, I've noticed a problem, and then walk away and say, I'll deal with it in a few days when I have more time. Problems can quickly multiply to spread throughout your garden bed, throughout that crop, and you have the potential for losing all of your hard work. One example of a plant problem that we often see here in Clark County is blossom end rot on tomatoes. The classic bottom of the end where the blossom had been here turns leathery, and this is due to a lack of calcium in the fruit. And it's used to be thought of that it was a problem with a lack of calcium in the soil, but what we've come to find through further research is that it's a problem with the plant being able to take up the calcium into the plant from the soil. Often our Pacific Northwest soils have plenty of calcium in them, so it's more an issue with the plant inability to take up calcium. This is a problem that can be prevented. So if you notice it in this year in your garden, next year there are things you can do to prevent, and you can observe, and then you would know how to act. So proper watering techniques, choosing varieties that are less susceptible to blossom end rot are just a couple of ways that you can help prevent this from happening in your tomatoes.